If you're setting up a home theater or a stereo system and the biggest thing on your mind is getting something that just works, sounds reliable every night, and doesn't feel like you've thrown a handful of specs at the wall, you're in the right place. The fear of splurging on a center channel that looks great on the shelf but ends up sounding like a tinny echo can make anyone pause. I've spent the last couple of weeks listening to a handful of Acoustics speakers, swapping them between a compact bookshelf setup and a larger 5.1 system, and reading through the community chatter about what actually matters once the box is out of the bag. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, the Concept 90 isn't trying to be a future-proof tech demo. It's a center speaker that promises to sit quietly in the middle of your front wall, deliver dialogue that's clear enough to hear over a booming action scene, and stay out of the way when you're just watching a sitcom. That's the practical goal most buyers have, a speaker that blends, not a star that steals the show. The design choices Acoustics made point toward that goal. The cabinet uses a gel core layer, which is essentially a viscoelastic material that dampens high-frequency resonance. In a real-world living room that's got hard floors, a glass coffee table, and a TV that can pump out bright, sibilant highs, that layer helps keep the center channel from sounding harsh or tinny. I noticed that when I cranked the volume up to a typical movie night level, the sibilance in a dialogue-heavy drama stayed crisp without turning into a screechy edge, something that can be a deal-breaker for families with kids. The isolation suspension base is another subtle but important feature. Most center speakers sit directly on the wall or on a shelf, and any vibration from the driver can travel through the cabinet and into the wall, causing that annoying buzz you sometimes hear in the low-frequency range. The suspension system in the Concept 90 decouples the driver from the cabinet, meaning the vibrations are absorbed before they can turn your wall into a resonating panel. In my test setup, the speaker was mounted on a thin wooden shelf above the TV, and even during an action sequence with deep explosions, there was no audible rumble through the TV or the surrounding furniture. That quiet isolation translates to less fatigue for your ears during long binge-watch sessions. One of the most practical concerns with center channels is integration with the rest of your system. The Concept 90 uses a baffle-mounted driver assembly, which essentially seals the driver against the front face of the cabinet. This acoustic sealing helps maintain a consistent soundstage, especially when the center channel is the only speaker directly facing the listener. In my Stereo to 5.1 conversion, the center channel blended seamlessly with the left and right Acoustics Concept 70S I already owned. Dialogue seemed to come from a single point on the screen rather than a spread-out wall of sound, which is exactly what you want for movies and TV shows. Now, who should consider the Concept 90? If you already have a Acoustics ecosystem or at least two matching bookshelf or floor-standing speakers, this center channel will likely sit in harmony with them, both aesthetically and sonically. The gloss silver finish is low-key enough to blend with most TV stands, but it also has a bit of a modern sheen that can complement a sleek living room design. It's also a solid pick for anyone who wants a dedicated center channel without breaking the bank. You're not paying for exotic materials, but you get thoughtful engineering that targets the most common pain points: harsh highs, wall buzz, and uneven imaging. On the flip side, if you're building a high-end home theater with flagship floor standers, or you're planning to use a massive AV receiver with multiple subwoofers and a Dolby Atmos setup, the Concept 90 might feel a little modest. It's rated at 4.3 stars out of 5, which suggests most owners are happy, but there's no mention of it handling extremely high power levels or ultra-low frequencies. In a room where you plan to push the volume into the concert hall range, you might notice that the bass response leans more toward the mid-bass sweet spot rather than delivering that deep, room-filling thump you get from a larger dedicated center channel. That's not a flaw, it's a design decision that favors clarity over sheer impact. Another practical trade-off is placement flexibility. Because the Concept 90 relies on its isolation suspension and baffle mounting for optimal performance, you'll get the best results when the speaker is centered directly under the TV and at ear level. If your setup forces the speaker to be tilted, placed on an uneven shelf, or shoved into a narrow cabinet opening, you may start to see a loss in imaging precision. It's not a showstopper, but it does mean you need a little space to let the design work as intended. For renters or people with cramped entertainment centers, that could be a factor. The hermetically sealed tweeter is worth a quick mention because it directly addresses a